Yeah.
I love my HBCU. And boy, I love it, love it. I love it, love it. I love my HBCU.
And man,
I hope my team they won one.
Yeah.
I hope my team they won one.
yeah, man,
I hope my team they won one.
Yeah.
I hope my team they won one.
yeah.
I tune into the HBCU Sports Lab to see if my team won or lost. If they lost, I'm quiet as a mouse. But if they won, keep tab. I'ma do the dab, yeah. Dr. Cavil, he know what he be talking about. Mike and Charles, they know what they be talking about. They compress the analytic data with this hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they won or lost, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
Welcome in to another episode of Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Charles Bishop, Brian Fulford coming in with me tonight. A little bit of a late start tonight as I'm kind of getting myself on location here in Atlanta as we get ready to start the 2024 SWAC baseball tournament. How you doing, Brian?
I'm doing well. Sorry about the delay, but good to be on with you. And man, I'm excited about this week. You can see I'm geared up. I'm ready to go.
I see you kind of rattling out over there. You trying to do some back-to-back around here, huh?
I'm trying to run it back in Atlanta. We love the city of Atlanta.
No doubt about it. Welcome into episode 510 of Inside HBCU Sports Lab, radio show and podcast that covers the sporting HBCU diaspora and all things HBCU sports for institutions large and small, from NAIA to NCAA. We share insights and information on the HBCU sports culture and HBCU athletics, aesthetics to facilitate the story of HBCU athletic programs and the business of HBCU sports. I'm your host tonight, Charles Bishop. Of course, Brian Fulford in with me. Mike Washington always with me weekly. And we are filming from our home studios and sending a signal live to our KCOH 1230 AM studios with the Texas Radio Hall of Famer, Ralph Cooper, in the beautiful home of Texas Southern University from Houston, Texas. So there, we got that part. We got the preamble out the way. Let's get to it. We will start, man. The SWAC announces baseball tournament seedings and the opening round matchups as everything gets underway on tomorrow. And want to start off, we got Florida A&M and Texas Southern. They are the respective number one seeds. FAMU out of the East, Texas Southern out of the West. FAMU 22-8 in SWAC conference play. Number one seed, Bethune-Cookman. They come in as the number two seed. They are 19-10 in the SWAC. Alabama State. They come in as the number three seed. They're 18-12 in conference play. And then Jackson State, they round out the four in the SWAC East, 16-12 in conference play. Representing the SWAC West, Texas Southern comes in 18-6, the number one seed. Then you have number two seed, which is Grambling. They come in at 18-8. Prairie View, sneaky. Prairie View, the number three seed. They come in at 18-9 in SWAC play. And then the number four seed is the Southern Jaguars, 15-12. Brian, it's the same 8 that we saw last year. We had all sorts of excitement last year. I think you got the same thing going into this year's SWAC baseball tournament.
You know what? We didn't even point that out when Drew and I were talking Sunday. We didn't even point that out, that it was the same 8 teams. That's pretty fascinating.
Yeah. And then it's I think the fascinating part is when we start looking at the matchups. I mean starting things off tomorrow, the very first game tomorrow, Bethune-Cookman, number 2 seed, going up against Prairie View, the number 3 seed. That one is intriguing enough because you got some ball players, I think, and we're going to get into some of these players that I think everybody wants to see. But you got some ball players in this first game that kind of sets things off.
It's the only matchup of 2 teams that have not played each other in the season to open it up. And I was telling Drew this the other day. I think this is of all the first round games, I think this is the most intriguing one to me.
It's super intriguing. Yeah,
I think it is. I think it is because of and honestly, I'm fast forwarding here probably. I think of the 2 teams out of this bracket, the team that's going to the championship game is coming out of this game, and I'm early in this. I'm early in this, and I tell you what, I think they will see each other twice, and it's the second time that we'll decide who gets there, in my opinion.
So, when I started taking a look at it, and I started taking a look really at last year's FAMU team, they kind of stumbled going down the stretch. They lost 9 of 12 going into the SWAC baseball tournament. But is there a team that you already are looking at that kind of resembles that FAMU team from last year and can get hot at the right time, if you will?
Here's the thing though, Charles. I mean, the team that I think is playing the best. Now, this is based off just performance in SWAC games. Is Prairie View. Prairie View has won 13 of their last 15 SWAC games. They started off the season 6-0, right? They rolled through the Cactus Jack, they rolled through the Andre Dawson Classic, and we were all like, oh, who's this Prairie View? And I tell guys, if you're familiar with Alex Weiss over Minority Baseball Prospects and Reggie, Coach Reggie, last name escapes me right at the moment, but used to be at Tuskegee. I think it's Holloman.
Okay.
They were very high on Prairie View at the beginning of the season. Just the loads of young talent that Prairie View had. Now, but Prairie View didn't have that stretch where they had a stretch of non-conference that was pretty bad. But, I mean, there aren't too many teams that have great non-conference stretches. Oh, wait a minute. Bethune-Cookman actually has a good –
Don't forget about the Wildcats.
Right, exactly. The one team in the SWAC who really did have a good non-conference was Bethune-Cookman. And, I mean, they took on any and everybody from the state of Florida and beat doggone all of them, or at least were right there competitively with them. So that's why I look at these two teams and I'm like, man, this is the intriguing matchup. It's 9 o'clock in the morning, which means, I got to be up you got to be up and ready for this one. I mean, it's going to be,
I got to be up and ready for this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, in game 2 tomorrow, you have Grambling and Alabama State. That'll be the 12 o'clock game. Another intriguing one because Alabama State did not have the year that I thought they were going to have. They're to see them at the number 3 seed is a little odd, especially when you talk about a lot of the hitting and whatnot that they have. But that's another intriguing one because I've watched this Grambling team up close a couple series this year. Brian, they can rake. They can absolutely swing the bat.
Yeah, that's what I keep hearing. I mean, Emmett Jones, he even thinks Grambling. I know Dr. Cavil, even Charles Edmond. A lot of people like Grambling. Okay. I mean, show me. I'm gonna be like the state of Missouri. Show me Grambling. I think when I looked at, hold on, I'm trying to pull up my Grambling notes here. They lost. See, here's the thing with Grambling, right? They lost 2 of the 3 times that they played FAMU, but they were they were 1-run games all 3 times, right? Mm-hmm. They lost both games to Jackson State. They played Jackson State, lost to them twice. And then when they played Prairie View, they lost 4 of 7 games to Prairie View. I mean, so you went 3-4 against Prairie View. And so who did you really play? You played Texas Southern and you beat Texas Southern 4 out of 6 times.
There you go. That's that. You beat the number 1 team coming out of SWAC West 4 out of 6 times. And let me tell you something. When they came to Houston, there was a series earlier. I think it was the first series between Grambling and Texas Southern. Oh my goodness! I said they can swing the bats. So that's a team I'm definitely going to be keeping an eye out for. I think the next matchup is the other one that is intriguing as well. And when I talk with Coach Michael Robinson about it, and it's Texas Southern versus Jackson State. That's the 3 o'clock game on tomorrow. Texas Southern, they've gone through a lot of adversity and they feel like they're peaking at the right time. and you never know what Coach Omar, in terms of what he's going to bring. You know, they're going to come in and play Omar ball, but they can swing the bats as well. That's a very intriguing matchup when you talk about Texas Southern and Jackson State as well.
I think, given Texas Southern's last year, where they went 0-2, if I'm not mistaken, then they lose their 2 games last year. They need a win in this first game. I think if there's anybody who really, really needs to win their first round matchup, it's Texas Southern. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think so. You don't think so?
I think it will go a long way. I've had the great pleasure of calling play-by-play for Texas Southern this past season, and I tend to think like you that they do need to get a win here in this first matchup. But they're playing. I think if there's a team, and there's not so much a surprise team, they are the number 1 seed. But if there's a team that's sort of rounding in the form. Watching them over the past couple of series, especially what they were able to do against UAPB, that last series, they didn't play the last 2 games, but they really jumped on them when they came to Houston that Friday night. Things were calm for like the first 3 innings, and they have this explosiveness that I've seen with regards to what their offense can do. And once they get up and rolling, they can be a pretty scary team to sit back and watch because, you know, we'll see if it holds true with regards to the West has the bats and the pitching is in the East. I think every coach has said something to that effect in terms of the arms over there on the eastern side of the bracket and the bats on the western side. But interesting to see. And here's the last matchup. FAMU versus Southern is a 6:00 game. This hasn't been a Southern team that I've, grown accustomed to watching year in, year out. Somebody texted me the other day, are they a prime candidate for 2 and barbecue? And you know what that means. So
yeah, they back to what they say, back to Baton Rouge, back to the gumbo and beignets in a short trip to Atlanta.
But I say this all the time. I've seen it too often. That team that you really don't expect, here they come. They find it at the right time. So I'm just not. I have that healthy respect for Southern baseball in terms of what they are able to do and how they're able to just find the magic when they need it, especially. So that should be intriguing. But out of the 1, 2, 3, 4 games, basically, which one are you looking forward to most?
Well, I think honestly, the matchups and the storylines are so intriguing in all 3, the first 3. And okay. I don't want to diminish Southern, because here's the thing about when I think about Southern, right? As you said, you got to put respect on their name because of the history. Yeah, just kind of like, the Texas Southern thing in basketball. You got to put some respect on Southern when you get to the baseball tournament.
You better.
And then look, Southern. If the Southern that beat LSU shows up, and I just watched today, LSU beat a Georgia team in the first round of the SEC that many people, I got people who've been whispering into my ear to say, hey, you might want to think about Georgia in the College World Series. I'm like, oh, really? So I go watch this game, and they smoked Georgia this morning. So you mean to tell me Southern beat that team? So yeah. I'm looking at that like, okay. Yeah. Now I'm a little my nervous meter, I get nervous easily, Charles. So my nervous meter is like this, because if Southern comes out and all of a sudden they hey, we got nothing to lose, guys. We're playing with house money. Let's just go and be free and have fun. All the expectation is on who?
Exactly.
Thank you. All the extra, even though we weren't predicted to finish first, we're the number 1 team in Black college baseball, HBCU baseball. We're the number 1 seed in the East. Every people like me and Drew and others, we got us going to the championship game. All the expectations are there. Southern's playing loose, free money. That could be dangerous. That's very dangerous. Very dangerous. Yeah. So, dangerous. I told you, I'm looking forward to that first game. The first game of the day, Bethune Prairie View. That's the game I think of all of the first three, which I think all three. I mean, great storylines. You guys are going to have fun talking about the various matchups and all that's going to happen in those first three games. It's going to be exciting. But yeah, my money's on Bethune Prairie View right out the box to give us a great game. And then we'll see what happens.
No doubt. Well, let's take a quick break and we'll come back and we'll talk about some of the players that we're going to talk about and some of the players that you're looking forward to seeing, because I think, that first game we talked about Bethune-Cookman Prairie View, there's a couple players with Prairie View. I think everybody needs to take a look-see, but we'll talk about players on each of these teams, your picks to click, if you will. We'll be right back here on Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Charles Bishop and Brian Fulford. We'll be right back.
Since 2002, Empowerment Resources, Inc., a nonprofit organization, has empowered more than 1,500 youth and adults in Duval and surrounding counties through its programs Journey into Womanhood, Girls Mentoring, Life Skills for Teens, and Parenting Education Coaching. To get involved with programs, volunteer, or donate, visit www.empowermentresourcesinc.org. Follow us on social media, facebook.com/empowerment.resources and instagram.com/empowermentJAX.
The human voice has always connected audiences with experiences. Major brands all across America have trusted Kever's voice time and time again. Conversational, powerhouse, intelligent, and sincere. That's the voice you need for your creative marketing process. KEAVERSVOICE.com. Kever's Voice, Kever's Voice, KeversVoice.com. Always on, all the time.
Nope. Nope.
Come on, him?
Ooh, I like him.
Quick, the quicker picker-upper. Bounty picks up messes quicker, and each sheet is 2 times more absorbent, so you can use less.
He's an 8.
He's a 9.
Bounty, the quicker picker-upper.
From novice to aficionado, find yourself here. High quality cigars plus personal customer service. Slow Burn is Waco's only mobile cigar lounge, featuring a meticulous, curated collection of premium cigars. Visit our website, www.slowburnwaco.com. That's www.slowburnwaco.com.
Compress the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
The Sports Lab, Charles Bishop and Brian Fulford, setting up things with the 2024 SWAC baseball tournament. Wanted to talk about some of the guys that you might be looking forward to watching tomorrow and over the next few days. Are there any players you got in mind, Brian?
Well, I see that the SWAC just released their player of their awards.
Oh, I'm looking for that. Oh,
yeah. I just it came out maybe about an hour, 2 hours ago.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm just kind of looking on their Twitter handle. So I'll just kind of go through the name awards. The SWAC Newcomer of the Year, Tanner Bocabello, starting pitcher for Bethune-Cookman. The Freshman of the Year was Juan Cruz of Alabama State. Yeah. Oh, that surprised you, huh?
That surprised me a little bit. Yeah, it did.
Yeah, Juan's the first baseman. The relief pitcher of the year, another Bethune-Cookman pitcher, Pablo Torres. He was the relief pitcher of the year. The pitcher of the year goes to Caleb Granger of FAMU. He get the pitcher of the year. The hitter of the year goes to Arkansas Pine Bluffs, Edwin De La Cruz. Edwin De La Cruz.
428 hitter.
Yeah. So, I mean, even being a good hitter on a bad team pays off. And then the player of the year goes to Alabama State's Ali LaPrade. I don't know if I'm saying that right. I hope I said that right. Ali LaPrade.
Yeah, Ali LaPrade. Yeah.
Yeah, he is he's an outfielder for Alabama State. So those are your players of the year. Shout out to Coach Jamie Shoup of FAMU and Coach Michael Robertson, the coaches of the year.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, yeah, definitely congratulations to all those players in terms of the accolades that they've received postseason. But that brings me to who is it that you want to see? And I think you started it off, and I think it's going to be a very intriguing matchup. But let me ask you to put your manager hat on for a quick second. Do you start the tournament off with your ace?
Ooh. I feel like you have to, don't you? I mean, because if you don't, then you're playing. I think if you don't start with your ace, you're playing possibly the next game. Let me see. Are you playing 2 the next day? No, you're not playing 2 the next day. You're playing 2 the following day. So yeah. So I always like to be from a position of strength. And so if I'm going to start my day 1 in game 1 on Wednesday, the likelihood of you having him on Saturday or Sunday. If you have to use him on a Saturday, you use him on Saturday, but you probably have him on Sunday. I would imagine. So I say you got to roll with your day ones, and then really I think that's why I heard Drew say the 2 and 3, or maybe even the 4th pitcher is really really where whichever team has that 3rd or 4th pitcher that shows up all of a sudden might be the team that actually wins it. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, it's interesting that you say that because if I'm not mistaken, FAMU had a guy last year, Maria, who showed up and
he was a relief pitcher.
But every time he showed up in a relief appearance, he's a bulldog. And I mean, he held serve until you could get back to 100 beats, if I'm not mistaken. So, and it was it was phenomenal. I think he made first team tournament just from what he was able to do. And those are the type of players that I'm looking for, who they might come in with this 5, 6, 7 ERA, but all of a sudden they are doing what they have to do. They're throwing pitches in the strike zone. They're getting guys out. Those are the guys that I'm looking for. Intriguing matchup for me tomorrow, especially. We talked about that first game, but you mentioned Tanner Bocabello. But it's the guys that he's going up against with Prairie View. There's a young man by the name of Michael Burrows that everybody should be paying attention to. He comes into this game batting .367, but he leads Prairie View in batting average, leads them in doubles, leads them in RBIs. He's also stolen 24 bases. When you talk about a guy, I want to see what he does when the spotlight is the brightest. That's a very interesting player in terms of watching him this past season. He can do it all. He can go chase down balls in the outfield too.
I'm looking here. He made second team all SWAT in the outfield. Is he number 44? Is that his number?
He is number 44. Yeah.
And the reason I bring that up is because I go back to that Andre Dawson Classic, and my guy Alex and Coach Reggie was telling me, they was like, Brian, keep an eye on this young man right here. You're going to hear about him either at the end of the season or going in next year. And look, here you are talking about. That's how I knew when you said that. I was like, oh, I remember the name, because I remember his name was Michael. I just didn't remember the last name. So There you go. Yeah.
Hey, he can go get it, man. He can go get it. It's a couple of, you mentioned Ali LaPrade. There's another one for Alabama State. I'm definitely keeping an eye out for. A guy who started hot, Joseph Eichelberger for Jackson State. I think he finished batting .359, but for a while he was sitting in that high 400s a batting average with regards to Jackson State. There's a bunch of players that I really want to see, how they stack up. I think he came out of nowhere last year. I think he was injured during the course of the season, but Tyler Jackson is another one for FAMU. That when the lights were the brightest, he really showed up last year in the SWAC tournament.
Yeah, I was looking. What was the young man from Jackson State? I was looking. Jackson State had a few guys on their second team. They had Miles White, DH, Jordan McClatty, outfielder, and then Christian Womble, relief pitcher. So those were the three guys from Jackson State. Ty is the leadoff, and he's the straw that stirs the FAMU drink, in my opinion. I mean, he does so many things, from just a clubhouse, his spirit and energy, plays hard. I was championing for him to be hitter of the year last year. I thought his numbers in SWAC competition were deserving. I'm starting to understand how the SWAC ADs and coaches vote on these things. So I'm starting to leave my comments in my back pocket.
There you go.
It's not worth it, because you already know. I'm a little. I think there's a host of FAMU guys on the second team that have been big players, big hitters all year. And so if they do what they've been doing, you're going to hear about them by Friday and Saturday, or maybe Friday and Sunday.
There's another one, Jan Michael Bastardo. That's another one remember well from the SWAC tournament last year. Got hot at the right time. That's another name. I'm going to give you another one from Texas Southern, and he has showed up and showed out consistently this year for Texas Southern. They have actually a couple of guys, Nim Burns, who's very much reminds me of Ty Jackson from FAMU, who leads off for Texas Southern, but they're catching. Michael Godot. Michael Godot has had a walk-off home runs. He's had a couple of grand slams. I think he's batting somewhere 700 against UAPB against that team. But when the lights are the brightest, he's one who shows up, and he's done it for the most part all season with what Coach Robertson was saying was a dislocated thumb. So he is tremendous from a defensive standpoint as well in terms of throwing runners out. So those are a couple of names that I knew that I wanted to put out there. Those are some guys that I'm really looking forward to watching tomorrow.
And you mentioned he was a catcher, and so it was kind of tough, obviously, because of the way the SWAC does their all SWAC teams. It's basically by position, So and so he's behind Brady Popple of FAMU, who's really had a great year hitting, and then of course Dela Cruz.
Yeah.
So
Dela Cruz batting 428. Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough, unless you were to put him in there as a DH or something like that in a DH spot. But
No, I was gonna say, let me throw this out here at you in terms of from your years of watching tournament baseball. What do you think are the keys?
First off, it does start with pitching. And that's the same true with baseball. Even at the pro level, what is it we always, and I say this as a Braves fan, and so you know where I'm going. We can have a great hitting year, but all it takes is the wrong matchup, and all of a sudden your bats go silent.
You're talking to another Braves fan here.
Okay,
so
you know the pain. You know the pain. I
know when we see the Dodgers.
Well, for me, it's the Phillies. It's the Phillies and Dodgers. If we can avoid the Phillies and Dodgers, but it's like, okay, so that's why I said, and what's funny is all of these schools have twice as many pitchers as they do infielders. So you're just hoping that these guys that you're giving either partial scholarships to, academic scholarships, the guys who have been a part of this, you got 15 pitchers on the roster. You're hoping you can get some juice and some magic from like 6 or 7 of them.
Yeah.
So I mean that's where I think it starts. I mean, it really does start with your pitching, and then the other thing that I think this is what I love when I heard Coach Kadar when he did last year and even the couple years previous when he's doing the play-by-play. Which team is going to do the situational baseball things? Which coach is going to do the situational baseball things? I'm a little biased. I think Jamie Shoup does a great job of situational baseball, but I see other teams that don't. And that's what I love about Kadar. He'll call it out. So I mean, there are some teams that when you got a runner, in second, 1 second, maybe no outs, instead of trying to move that runner to third, your guy's up there swinging. It's like you're like, okay,
yeah.
And then he gets struck out, and then the next guy comes up, he's swinging too, and you're thinking, is anybody thinking of moving the runner to third? I mean, how precious are runs? So. Which and you said all 8 teams have been here before. I think all 8 managers, all 8 coaches have been here before, correct? I don't think we have any new coaches. So that's going to be what's really interesting about this year. Which coach learned from quote unquote mistakes that they made last year that helped them this year?
That's a very interesting point. And I know for me, it's going to be the defense making the simple play so that you don't have an extra out every inning or an extra out. A pet peeve of mine is throwing behind runners. That's just something that drives me crazy because anything can happen when you throw behind runners, and most times it's not good. It's like it's like football coaches talking about throwing the ball. It's not a good thing all the time to throw the ball all the time. But when you have, players or trying to get balls back into the infield and you start throwing it behind runners, those are the things that start scaring me because balls get away. You give a guy extra base. You create a longer inning than it should be when all you had to do is make the fundamental out.
Yeah. It's funny, interested looking at different comments. I mean, do you think that this, I mean, when you think of the conference as a whole, I mean, do you think does the conference think like, do the coaches in this conference think that way in terms of being situational versus, hey, and I'll go so far as to say situational is which team is going up to the plate free swinging, which team is disciplined to allow that first pitch? On a 3-0 count, which team is disciplined to take that pitch? Or I'm a little cavalier here, Charles. I've always said when it's 3-0, the best pitch you're gonna get is like this one that's coming. And I know that's against the golden rule of baseball, right? You take the pitch. But I've always told myself, it's 3-0. The best pitch I'm about to get is the one that's coming. Why wouldn't I let that? I mean, I guess that's maybe if it's a scoreless game, if nobody's on base, why not let that guy swing away? But I don't know that I'm not an old school baseball guy. Don't get me started about the unwritten rules of baseball. I'm not that guy.
Hey, the unwritten rules are what they are, the unwritten rules. But I think you make a great point. I mean, I think situational baseball, moving runners over, a timely hit and run, especially what I really look forward to is, are you able to get the first out? Are you able to get the first out of the inning? That's huge. And when you start putting guys on base, who's throwing strikes? I think that's going to be huge. You go back to pitching and things of that nature. But I think those are just, a couple of things, it's baseball 101, but we don't always see what is baseball 101, if you will.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, these guys have been playing for a long time. And so I think it's I think there's going to be some interesting decisions, and I think that's what's going to be really fun about this year. And like you said, this year, the fact that you have all 8 teams returning from a year ago, it really is going to be fascinating, I think, to see the strategy that many of these coaches or managers really have.
No doubt. And we'll go back over the matchups again. Game 1 tomorrow is number 2 seed Bethune-Cookman taking on Prairie View, which is the number 3 seed. That's at 9 a.m. At 12, you have Grambling, number 2 seed, taking on the number 3 seed Alabama State. The evening games, it'll be Texas Southern, number 1 seed, taking on the number 4 seed Jackson State. That is a 3 o'clock game. And then the nightcap tomorrow is FAMU, the number 1 seed, taking on the number 4 seed, the Southern Jaguars. And then, anything can happen when you start talking about the loser of game 1 versus loser of game 3, blah, 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 blah. But I mean, it's a grind to get to Sunday, if you will, Brian. And that's what makes it fascinating. That's what makes it fascinating, especially in regards to the person or the pitching staff that steps up when need be. Because it's we saw it last year with FAMU. I mean, they came back from the depths and were able to take home the trophy.
Yeah, there were guys who showed up that had us all scratching our heads like, where'd this guy come from? Yeah, I mean, guy, I mean, the 2 or 3 pitching performances that were gems, you just kind of like, I didn't think it was, I was hoping it was possible, but I hadn't seen it too many times during the year, and guys just showed up at the right time. And so, that's what's going to be interesting.
No doubt.
Let me ask you this. Of all the end of the season statistics, right, whether it be batting, pitching, fielding, if you were looking at, because there are going to be people who are going to look at the statistics and try to, handicap or analyze teams. Is there a stat or two that you look at or will look at to say, this is the team that I like and this is why? And then even within those stats, are you looking at the overall season stats, or do you look at the conference stats? And then, of course, when you look at the conference stats, you got to look at a little asterisk, because what? East only plays East and West only plays West.
Yeah. For whatever reason, the stat that most jumps out for me is based on balls. Are you throwing into the strike zone? Are you putting guys on and just creating longer innings? And inevitably, what ends up happening is when you start putting guys on, just bad things happen. And that's always a stat that has jumped out for me in terms of, how you start wearing down your bullpen, because you start putting guys on, things of that nature. But based on balls, the walks are the ones that always stick out for me. Obviously, I'm going to pay attention to defense, especially, if you're giving teams extra outs. But putting guys on, that's the quickest way to go to in barbecue.
And that's pitching, from a pitching perspective, right?
Definitely from a pitching perspective, yes.
Okay, so let me give you those stats here. So the teams in this tournament who had the most walks pitching, and this is based on overall stats, right? This is their whole season. You had 2 schools that had the most, and that was Prairie View and Grambling. Right?
Interesting.
Yeah. Now and when I say that, they were actually tied for 3rd most among all 12 schools. Okay, meaning that the two worst teams obviously aren't playing in the tournament. And then number 3 would be Jackson State. So that would be your top 3 in terms of most walks. Now, the team that had the fewest walks from a pitching perspective, you had FAMU and Bethune-Cookman. And they weren't actually they actually were 2nd and 3rd overall in the conference. There was actually somebody who didn't make it to the tournament that actually had the fewest amount of thrown walks. But in terms of the 8 teams in the tournament, FAMU and Bethune, and we're talking like 2 batters, had the fewest number of walks.
Interesting. That's
yeah,
but
so
it makes sense with the 1 and 2 teams in the East. They do a good job with regards to pitching in terms of not putting guys on and not creating the extra out, if you will. So Fascinating stuff, man. Had to do an abbreviated inside the HBCU Sports Lab tonight as we get ready for a very early morning with regards to the SWAC tournament. Of course, I'll be doing sideline tomorrow, SWAC Digital. So I definitely wanted to make sure that we gave proper attention to the SWAC baseball tournament tonight here on the lab. Brian, I appreciate you stepping in tonight, bro.
Hey, thank you, man. Thank you. Now, are you allowed, because you're doing the broadcast, you're not allowed to give any predictions? Is that correct? Is that how that goes?
I know to stay away from a prediction anyway. So.
All right. So let me see. How can I frame this question then? I'll start with the West. What team from the West has the best chance, in your opinion, to get to the championship game? I'll start there.
Yeah, that's a prediction.
Is it really? No. Okay, if that's a prediction, I said has the best chance, though.
I will say this. I will say I think that there are some teams coming down the stretch that have been playing pretty good ball. Obviously, I've had an opportunity to watch Texas Southern coming down the stretch and watching them up close. They are a very cohesive team, very impressive team. So I think they have a great opportunity to make a run in this tournament. I'm impressed by overall the talent that's up and down the roster when you take a look at Prairie View and Grambling as well. So it's very hard, I think, to sort of pinpoint that something about a particular team that, this is why they'll go all the way, because I think the parity is such that it's very, very hard to just say without a shadow of a doubt, you know what, this is a team that could put it together, because who would have said that about FAMU last year?
It's true. All right, one final question. I don't think this is a predictive, so maybe I'm not going to get you in trouble. I'm steering you away from it. Okay. Obviously, a lot of people think that we might have a rematch of the championship game. So my question is, the reason we won't have a repeat of last year's championship game between FAMU and Bethune, who just coincidentally are on different sides of the bracket again, is because of what or why?
Somebody's pitching staff didn't perform up to expectations.
Okay. I like that.
I don't know who it is. I don't know who the spoiler is. I know Zach Morea last year was a spoiler for FAMU because he was able to come in and eat up innings and pitched as well as he did.
Gotcha. Okay. Good stuff. I hope I didn't. I try not to steer you into getting in trouble, but good answers though. Good answers, Charles. Good answers.
No doubt, man. We will do it again next Tuesday. We will talk about the winner of the SWAC baseball tournament, as well as a bunch of other great HBCU news out there. Again, abbreviated show tonight, but had to get in. Thank you for coming in with me, Brian.
Hey man, it's a pleasure. You guys have a great call. I mean, it should be fun. I'm gonna have my popcorn ready right there at my desk while I'm at school. My last day of school tomorrow, so I'm gonna have the computer on. I'm gonna have my popcorn and tell kids that y'all do whatever y'all do. Don't get in trouble. Don't tear up the walls. Actually, I might put them to cleaning duty. Be like, hey, y'all clean while I'm up here watching this baseball game in the morning. But hey, you guys
nothing like the last day of school, man.
Nothing like the last day of school, man. So you guys have a great call. I'm looking forward to watching you guys all day and night over the next couple days.
No doubt. Looking forward to it. Well, you know how we always close this thing out. I'll start it off, of course.
Lecture.
Dismiss.
Dismiss.
See you next Tuesday.